Hello, my name's Paul-Beckett, and today I was going to speak a little bit about what we consume because we're responsible for the content that we consume. We're responsible for the things we watch on TV. We're responsible for the food that we're consuming. You know, what you put into you, into your awareness, into your world, you're responsible for. And it's something that I've been thinking about lately. I wasn't a spiritual seeker before I realized my true nature. And in a way, I'm really grateful for that because I'm now working with a lot of people who are on the spiritual path, and I see the frustration and, they feel like they've put in these years of hard work, and, they've got the whole list. They've been to Muji's ashram, and I've read this book and I've done that. And so why still hasn't this happened for me? And I don't have an answer. And it makes, I feel for that sense of frustration. And I see the way we're placing self-realization as an achievement, something that we need to work towards, something that we need to prove ourselves worthy of, maybe somehow. If I'm a good enough boy or a good enough girl, then it'll be for me. Do you know what I mean? And it's not that. I know the world's set up that way, but actually, to be what you already are can't be an achievement. It can only be a letting go of the illusions, a letting go of the errors that you've held about yourself. So, once I'd realized my true nature, I didn't know that it had happened for another person. I didn't know what it was called. Obviously, I did. The information came to me, and I was like, wow, like this has been happening for thousands of years, and it's happening all over the world, and all of this. And so then I started putting my feelers out into, the spiritual smorgasbord. And, I came across some of the main players, David Bingham, Rupert Spira, Muji, Eckhart Tolle, Ramana Maharshi, all the ones that we've probably all heard of. And then I don't have social media. I have Instagram. I got rid of all my social media, but I still have Instagram. And I kind of started following some of this Instagram spirituality. And I'm not saying that from a judgmental point of view, but all I'm saying is there's a lot of information out there, and it's almost a bit trendy. And anyway, I'm following other people. And I would find myself, sitting there having a little scroll, and these things would come up. When I watch TV, I'm able to take it with a pinch of salt now. I'm able to look and be like, right, I understand the reality that I'm living in, and I understand what not to let in from this. But when I was watching all of these different spiritual things, I wasn't taking it with the same pinch of salt. I was taking everything to be like, oh, but I understand that this is hinting at the truth, but actually a lot of it wasn't the way that just I inside myself related to things. And then I was letting that kind of tilt me a little bit, or it could start to feel like a little bit like I was coming into a little bit of confusion almost, or like I was wanting to be in opposition to something, and that's completely opposite to how I live my life now. So over the last couple of weeks, I've unfollowed a lot of spiritual content. Now, this sounds like I'm an absolute hypocrite because here I am on the internet making spiritual content. Don't watch it if it doesn't resonate with you. But I just realized that what wasn't resonating with me, I didn't need to give my attention to. And it didn't matter if they were using the right words. It didn't matter if there was parts of it that I could relate to. If it wasn't resonating with me, if I wasn't like, this strikes a chord in me, or this is something that I just know. It's a funny thing with the truth. I find when I hear the truth, it's almost like I remember it along with the information that I'm hearing. So it's kind of like, yes, yeah, I see that, because as soon as I heard it, it sparked off the memory that was already in me. So when I was getting confused by things, when things seemed overly complicated, it was something that I didn't resonate with at all. So I have took responsibility of that, and I thought, well, that's not something I need to expose myself to. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong. There's an ear for every word, and every path, if it's even remotely to do with this, is going to bring us closer to the truth. But for me, I was just like, right, I need to be really conscious of what I am consuming. When before times, Paul was quite, he would like maybe have a little look at astrology, things like that. Loved the idea of the universe being some kind of sentient being, did like that idea. People would say, oh, don't worry, the universe will do this for you, the universe will do that for you. Oh, what's the full moon tonight? That must mean something very significant. And since I'm like, wow, it's like a massive outsourcing of our power. I was born on this day, this body, which I'm not even, was born on this day in this month. So that puts it in this category, which means it's this, which means that about you, which means you're either fire or water or earth or air. Separation. Do you know what I mean? And this means this about you. The moon's doing this tonight. This means you are going to feel this. Energy updates, the energy update of the universe. I don't know how people know this, but maybe they do. I don't know. The energy update is doing this. You will all be feeling this tonight. And I was like, wow, this is the exact opposite to what I'm feeling inside. It feels like I'm looking outside of myself to be told what I am. And that just didn't resonate with me at all. So again, things like that, I just realized that it didn't have any benefit for me. I just wasn't really interested in it anymore, because if anything, and the best advice I can give to anybody reading is going inward are where your answers are. Myself, a million people are going to try and point to things. And this is another thing. When you hear these old stories in India, of people realizing their true nature and then going to live in a cave and not speaking anymore, I can kind of understand why. Words, words are just, words can't hit the truth. So I remember hearing, the word pointing, people would say, I'm not teaching you anything. I'm not telling the truth here, because words can't tell you the truth. But what they can do is nudge you and hint you and point in the direction of you then doing the work internally and being like, I get it. But yeah, it's a funny one. Quite often I'll make these videos, and sometimes I'm just like, I want to be laser sharp with them, but I'm not. I'm a rambler, because I feel like the more I speak, the more opportunity I've got to speak nonsense. You know what I mean? But I just want to try. I just want to try. My life has changed, and I look around the world and I look at the suffering in the world, and I look at other people who at least are open to seeing this truth. I think I've got to at least try. I've got to at least try just to tell my truth as I know it, as experientially I know it. It's like I said, it doesn't come from books and videos what I'm sharing, because I feel like there's no power in me just regurgitating this the spiritual library to you guys. You've probably read all these things already. The only book that I have found any kind of help with, and this has been a real funny one for me, because I was brought up Catholic. I had a very strange relationship with it. I kind of towards the end was a bit like, I don't believe in this, because, God is love, or God's chosen people. I was like, wow, that doesn't seem right to me, to an all-encompassing love. And I came across a book called A Course in Miracles. Now, A Course in Miracles is a channel text, and it says the person who channeled it said they were channeling Christ. Those who use the word Jesus. Now, let's remember, whether you believe in the Christian story or not, we are all the same thing. So if we want to put a name to that, right, maybe Christ is being used, the vessel perhaps was a man called Jesus who was living in Palestine. The vessel here is a man called Paul, on the end, Ramana Harsi was a vessel, but we're speaking from another place, because we are all not this. We are the same. we're only ever truly relating to ourselves through these different costumes. So anyway, A Course in Miracles, I was super resistant to it at first because it's written in a Christian language. And I hated the sound of that when I wanted to argue with everything about it. I didn't want to like it, but something kept on bringing me back because I just, in that book, I actually listened to it, the audiobook, but so many things that I realized just myself out the blue when I realized my true nature were there in front of black and white, were there in black and white. And I was like, I cannot deny this truth. I cannot deny that that's what I remembered. So I stuck with it. I stuck with it. And the book comes in three parts. It's a text, which is kind of a bit poetic almost. Probably the hardest going part of it. Course book where there's a lesson for every day of the year, and then a manual for teachers. It calls itself as a way to, relate to other people once you've done the work of the course. I think the the actual goal of the course is for you to realize your true nature. So it's funny that I came to it afterwards, but actually I found it really beneficial, and I didn't want to find it beneficial. Like I say, I resisted this so much. But I started doing the lessons, and I've actually just finished them like in the last few days. So I started a year ago, and it has a different lesson, a different thought for you every day. And again, some of them I really wanted to argue with, but I couldn't deny the truth in it, the truth that just sung in me, the truth in me that recognized the truth in it. So that's kind of the only kind of thing that I've ever really looked at and gone, yeah, I can't deny this. It's not it's not half the way there, it's not quite there, it's there. So in terms of what I consume, I've kept myself to that now. So I'm like, right, I feel like it's the kind of thing I've listened probably to the text maybe 6, 7 times, and it's big. It's a big book. I just go out walking because I don't go to the gym or anything anymore. I put weights in the backpack and I walk. And I listen to it, and like I say, heavy going. It's heavy going at first. And especially what I found, it was due to the Christian language, this father and son language and all that. But the more I listened to it, the more I was like, I get it. It's kind of unpicking the errors we've made in Christianity. And I had to admit that that was the programming that I had been brought up with. So there was work for me to be done there to drop a lot of the conditioning that gave me around guilt, around shame, that exclusive thing of there was one son, don't know about the rest of yous. So it gave me a chance to forgive my childhood, to forgive the resistance I felt towards my family's religion, to forgive the idea of, I'm going to use the G word now, so if you're triggered, sorry, to forgive the idea of a God. Because I grew up with a judgmental God, a God that was reactionary, a God that punished, a God that was exclusive, a God that loved these, but not so much them because had preferences, a God that punished, a God that tested people. It just never rung true to me. And I realized when I realized my true nature, and the words I used was, I'm God. And then I was like, fuck. I realized that there was barriers that I'd put up in front of myself, in front of the idea of there being a omnipotent loving force, let's just say, I put barriers up in front of that so much so that I forgot that that was just what I was part of. And so working through the course has been really beneficial for me to see the barriers that I was unconsciously still holding in front of the idea of an unconditional loving force, which is us all. So in terms of what I'm consuming, that's something I found really helpful. I'm putting it out there. It's not going to be for everybody, I'll tell you that right now, because I go as far as to say, I won't use the word hate, but I go as far as to say I heavily disliked that book when I first started with it. And am I grateful for it? Yes, I'm so grateful for it. As it is it actually a lovely part of my life now, something that I get real pleasure from listening to? Yes, it is. Did it take me a year to get there? Yes, it bloody well did. So I thought I would share that with you because uh it's been really beneficial to me in unpicking this idea of the way we've been brought up with our relationship to higher power. It was always something outside of us, wasn't it? We've outsourced our power again, like astrology, like the moon is dictating your energy levels, like, all of this. We've outsourced our power, forgetting that everything is inside us. I spoke last week about the universe being inside us, being a thought. It's been a passing thought of could separation be? And this apparently is the illusory idea of that playing out. I wanted to share that because when it comes to truth, it can seem a bit subjective. And I think it can be depending where you're allowing yourself to be on the path, where you are with just your acceptance of what you are and things like that. There's no specialness here, there's no hierarchy. I'm a teacher in school, and at the same time, I see this. It's like, well, I wouldn't give the same textbook to my first years that I know my sixth formers can digest. And I think we're kind of like that a bit in the world as well. We'll all get there when it's time for us to be there. Not in this life, then another one. They're all simultaneous anyway. It's not even linear the way we think about it. But I I think there's something really, really important about allowing yourself to be where you are, not judging yourself by looking at these talking heads online like me, like reading books and this and thinking, I'm not there yet, I'm doing something wrong. Because it's a funny thing, we're all already there. But the time in which we'll allow ourselves to accept that we're there appears to be staggered. Does that make sense? Now, if we're talking that time doesn't exist anyway, then that's not even an issue. But there's so many spiritual seekers that I speak to, who, like I say, conceptually have done it all. They've ticked all the boxes, but they're just not allowing themselves to stop there and be like, there's nothing more to know. There's nothing more to know. I've read the menu. And then that aha moment of tasting the meal, that aha moment of, oh my God, that's it. I feel it. I'm not tossing an idea around in my head. I'm not debating it with myself. I'm not dissecting it in my head like a scientist. It's just this, I'm going to use the word embodied, even though the body's got nothing to do with it, but it's just this fundamental, oh, I get it. Oh, I remember. You haven't told me anything new. That's how it felt for me. You haven't told me anything new. I just remembered. So yeah, I wanted to share today that with you because it felt significant that I'd finished the book, finished the workbook this year, and actually I loved it. I found it really helpful. And so I feel like I should pass that on. And if it's going to be for you, it'll be for you. And if it's not for you, then who cares? That's another thing that you don't need to consume. I love you.